You know, it's a punch name Ivan.
Right.
Yeah, Ivan is like a big guy who living in village and work in farm. He was a big guy. Yeah, it's a hard punch. Yeah, Ivan.
What's up, everybody? So I opened the Buy Me a Coffee page, and you know how much I love coffee, so feel free to help a brother out. Also, in other news, I made a highlight video entitled Oleksandr Usyk's Ivan, which you will be able to see featured at the very end of hopefully this short video. But right now, let's talk about the bias that some of these modern non-Western heavyweights have to deal with when being compared to some of these all-time greats. I started checking out one of Dwyer's videos where he was putting Usyk in a historical perspective, picking apart every single one of his wins, intimating or outright stating how all these guys were past their prime, how they had psychological issues without providing a shred of credible evidence, except for witness testimony of a fucking liar. And then he even had the gall to say that Usyk, however young he was, lost to Sean Porter in the amateurs, at which point I just stopped listening, because not only was some of the shit completely irrelevant, well, I mean, are we even going to talk about the fact that a lot of Ali's opponents were all fucked up going into his fights? Legal problems, psychological issues, bullet in their bodies, I mean, legally blind with one arm. No. Don't mess with the GOAT. Are we going to talk about the fact that some of these guys died in some shady circumstances years later? What about the FBI investigating Ali's fights? Are we going to talk about any of that? Shut up. Biased. Just as the whole fucking aura surrounding the golden age of heavyweight boxing, I mean, this shit just makes me want to puke. Let's just keep it real. So Bob Satterfield, someone you've never heard of, is considered one of the hardest hitters in heavyweight history, right? It's interesting how that era had, well, at least 5 of them, right? And only maybe 5, if we're lucky, ever since. That's how amazing that era was, guys. Because a whole bunch of old dudes who at this point in time could barely even fucking see, well, they said so you know it was true. So we had Bob Satterfield, we had George Foreman. I think Joe Frazier is one of the ones that's considered as one of the hardest hitters. Then there was obviously Shavers, and who am I forgetting here? Did I mention Foreman yet? Sonny Liston, if I didn't mention him. 5 of the hardest hitters ever in the heavyweight division. And if I think hard enough, I could probably find at least a couple more, maybe even 3. But let's just say 5 of the hardest hitters in the heavyweight history happened to fight in that 20 or so year span. The golden era, where everybody hit so damn hard, right? It's not the fact that they didn't have any fucking defense, right? No. That would be telling the truth. Or hating. So Bob Satterfield, who had something like 70% KO ratio in his wins, and more than 50% KO ratio loss in his losses, that's one of the hardest hitters. Where his real KO percentage, and yes, you have to count the losses because those are fights he had where he didn't knock anybody out. His real KO percentage was somewhere around 44%. He never won, or even, I don't think he even fought for a title, and his greatest victory is probably Cleveland Williams, whom he knocked out in 3 rounds, right? Just as Sonny Liston knocked him out in 3 or 2 twice. Very early in their fights, right? Because he didn't have any fucking defense. But Cleveland Williams, right? Bullet lodged in his body, coming off a fucking dialysis machine. I mean, today the most you'll hear is, oh, he was coming off the couch. That fucking dude was coming off a dialysis machine. That's Muhammad Ali's greatest performance. Against the fucking corpse who probably just took the fight for the money and then years later died in some shady fucking circumstances that no one even cared to investigate. Oh. I don't recall the FBI investigating any of Usyk's fights, if we want to put asterisks by them. How about his connection to mafia or the Nation of Islam? Sorry. Get out of here. Bob Satterfield, who had barely a 44 KO percentage record, is one of the hardest hitters ever. I saw some of his fights. He'll be hitting some of these dudes over and over and over and over again. They ain't going nowhere. But let's put Oleksandr Usyk to the golden era standard of Bob Satterfield, one of the hardest hitters ever. Let's say Usyk loses the second Tyson Fury fight and gets a TKO as he should have in that first fight. Let's say he loses both times to Anthony Joshua and Derek Chisora. Let's say he loses to Gassiev, Briedis, and gets, as he should have, a TKO victory over Michael Hunter. Let's say all of that happens, Usyk still manages to win the lineal heavyweight title, if not a cruiserweight title. And he ends up with a 100% KO ratio in his wins, with some highlight real one-punch knockouts, like Bellew, who was bigger than the average Ali opponent by far, or even Daniel Dubois, and some of these lower level guys he knocked out with a single punch. And then you see a couple of those beatdowns and referee stoppage. Wouldn't that be one of the heaviest hitters in heavyweight history? 100% KO ratio on BoxRec, look at it. 100% KO ratio on BoxRec, look at it. While becoming the lineal heavyweight champion of the world, and some highlight real KOs over top level guys. Why shouldn't that be one of the heaviest hitters in heavyweight history? All he has to do is lose 5 fights. Just like Norton and Frazier were considered all-time great heavyweights because they beat the greatest. Make that fucking make sense.
Yeah, it's a hard punch, yeah, he won.